BMW's newest wave of funding for hydrogen fuel cell technology marks one of the most significant shifts in the automotive sector's energy landscape, and the implications reach far beyond German borders. In the last year, the company secured approximately $273 million in public funding, $91 million from the German federal government and $82 million from the Bavarian state, to accelerate the HyPowerDrive program, a full-scale industrialization effort to bring hydrogen fuel cell powertrains into series production by 2028. This boost of capital is not just a headline, it is a signal. BMW is effectively stating that hydrogen mobility is entering a new era and that it will no longer sit on the fringes of the EV transition. Instead, fuel cell electric vehicles, or FCEVs, are poised to become a major complement to battery electric vehicles, especially for long-range mobility, heavy-duty driving, and markets where fast, widespread charging infrastructure still lags behind electrification ambitions. This video explores what that funding means, why BMW is doubling down on fuel cells, how it shifts the global competitive landscape, and how it opens new opportunities for hydrogen producers, project developers, investors, and the emerging ecosystem of green hydrogen supply chains. The automotive world is shifting, but BMW's move is distinct because it positions hydrogen alongside, not against, battery electrification. For a long time, the hydrogen conversation has been polarizing. You were either on the battery EV side or on the fuel cell side. But BMW's recent messaging is clear. This is not an either-or battle. Instead, it is a dual-track approach to zero-emission mobility, and hydrogen's role is finally maturing. The funding under the IPCEI hydrogen framework is a major factor in this. The Important Projects of Common European Interest, IPCEI, is the EU's largest industrial support mechanism for hydrogen, backing everything from electrolyzer manufacturing to storage, heavy transport, and mobility. BMW's HyPowerDrive program fits into the hydrogen use case mobility pillar, making it eligible for substantial public investment. In practical terms, the funding accelerates three core elements: fuel cell stack development, vehicle integration, and the scaling of hydrogen drivetrain production. BMW wants to industrialize, not prototype, fuel cell systems, and that distinction matters. The industry has had hydrogen prototypes for more than 2 decades. What it has lacked is a commercially viable, mass-manufactured fuel cell architecture that can be built at automotive scale. BMW's announcement signals the beginning of that transformation. With the HyPowerDrive project underway, BMW is preparing its next-generation hydrogen vehicle, the iX5 Hydrogen, for a 2028 market release. The iX5 Hydrogen is not a conceptual model. It is a real, drivable test fleet vehicle that has already undergone extensive validation across Europe, Japan, Korea, and the Middle East. BMW's engineers have highlighted the advantages of hydrogen drive systems in specific real-world situations. These include rapid refueling, typically under 5 minutes, consistent performance under heavy load, stable operation in cold climates, and long driving ranges that rival diesel-powered SUVs. Unlike battery EVs, which experience range reduction in extreme cold or when towing, fuel cell vehicles maintain much more consistent output because hydrogen storage does not suffer from temperature sensitivity in the same way that lithium-ion batteries do. For customers who drive long distances, travel across varied terrains, or operate in professional contexts like fleet logistics and government use, this consistency is a major advantage. BMW's CEO, Oliver Zipse, has repeatedly emphasized that hydrogen is particularly suited for markets where fast charging infrastructure is not growing quickly enough. This includes parts of Eastern Europe, the Middle East, South America, India, and Africa, regions where grid stability and high-capacity charging are still limited. In these markets, hydrogen can bypass the grid entirely, fueling vehicles quickly without overloading local electrical systems. This perspective reframes hydrogen, not as an expensive alternative fuel but as a practical mobility solution in regions where pure electrification is difficult. It creates a stronger business case for hydrogen infrastructure providers and green hydrogen producers, especially those focused on mobility and transportation offtake. The $273 million funding is also significant because it comes at a time when many automakers have slowed or paused their hydrogen programs. Honda scaled back global FCEV deployment. General Motors shifted its hydrogen fuel cell efforts to heavy-duty fleets. Toyota remains committed to hydrogen, but its strategy has diversified due to slow Mirai sales. In this environment, BMW's decision to increase hydrogen funding stands out. It positions the company not as a follower, but as a technology hedge leader. BMW's strategy is to diversify drivetrain technologies so that it can meet varying regional market needs without putting all of its future on one technology stack. Instead of betting solely on batteries, BMW is investing in hydrogen fuel cells, advanced battery chemistries, and next-generation electrification platforms. The $273 million will accelerate BMW's ability to produce fuel cell stacks in Bavaria and integrate them into vehicle architectures. The funding also supports research into hydrogen storage tanks, lightweight, high-pressure carbon fiber tanks that can store hydrogen at 700 bar, and the thermal management systems needed for stable power delivery. From a developer perspective, BMW's hydrogen shift matters because mobility represents one of the highest value end use cases for green hydrogen. Industrial hydrogen, particularly gray hydrogen, has dominated global demand for decades in refining, fertilizer production, and chemicals. But the new wave of green hydrogen demand is expected to come from mobility and heavy transport sectors. When companies like BMW add FCEVs to their portfolios, it signals coming demand growth for green hydrogen stations, logistics hubs, and distributed refueling networks. Hydrogen refueling stations, HRS, require developers who understand electrolyzer sizing, compression systems, storage vessels, metering, hydrogen purity standards, and safety regulations. These stations must meet automotive-grade requirements: ISO 19880 for refueling infrastructure, SAE J2601 for fueling protocols, and SAE J2719 for hydrogen purity. These are not trivial standards. They require technical expertise and meticulous planning. BMW's entry into the space increases the urgency and commercial viability for these types of stations. BMW's partnership ecosystem also drives development. The company collaborates with Toyota on fuel cell stack co-development, a partnership dating back more than 10 years. Toyota brings deep expertise in membrane electrode assemblies, MEAs, and stack durability, while BMW contributes to vehicle integration, performance tuning, and system engineering. The recent funding helps BMW bring more of that work in-house, allowing for tighter optimization of stack performance relative to its specific vehicle platforms. For developers working in hydrogen production or infrastructure development, this clarity is helpful because it signals what types of fuel cell systems BMW may require. For example, the BMW Toyota stack architecture is optimized for 700 bar hydrogen fueling. That means the refueling station must be capable of full 700 bar fast fill, pre-cooling, and pressure ramping as defined by international protocols. Developers can use this information to plan station parameters, compression needs, and pre-cooling equipment sizing. The timing is important. BMW plans to scale its hydrogen fleet around 2028, which means hydrogen infrastructure must be built now, not later. Hydrogen projects often take 18 to 36 months from concept to commissioning, depending on permitting, electrical interconnection, construction scheduling, and safety reviews. That's why developers who pay attention today will be better positioned to capture market opportunities when BMW's vehicles reach mass adoption. With BMW's fresh funding, more suppliers will likely enter the hydrogen ecosystem. Companies making tanks, valves, carbon fiber components, fuel cell membranes, compressors, and hydrogen station hardware will expand their offerings. Cost curves will fall as scale increases. This mirrors what happened in the battery industry between 2010 and 2020, where scale from companies like Tesla, BYD, LG Chem, and Panasonic drove down battery costs by more than 85%. Hydrogen is entering that inflection point, and BMW's funding is a key part of that transition. One thing that sets BMW's hydrogen strategy apart is its focus on premium vehicles. While Toyota initially launched hydrogen vehicles in mid-market sedans like the Mirai, BMW is beginning with SUVs, a category known for high margins, long ranges, and heavy energy consumption. This matters because fuel cell systems are inherently more efficient for high-energy demand vehicles, offering longer range with lighter onboard energy storage compared to batteries. A battery pack providing 500 kilometers of range in a large SUV can weigh between 500 and 700 kilograms. A hydrogen system with comparable range weighs significantly less. Weight matters not only for vehicle handling but also for energy efficiency. The less mass you move, the less energy you consume per kilometer. BMW sees this as a competitive advantage in the luxury SUV market and for future fleet and commercial applications. The $273 million funding package also helps Germany maintain competitiveness in the global race for hydrogen mobility. China is investing heavily in hydrogen heavy-duty trucks and infrastructure. Japan and Korea maintain advanced hydrogen ecosystems with strong government backing. The United States introduced generous hydrogen production tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act, making it one of the world's most cost-competitive regions for green hydrogen production. Without substantial investment, Germany and Europe risk falling behind. BMW's funding helps anchor hydrogen innovation in Bavaria, home to multiple research centers, engineering hubs, and hydrogen suppliers. It ensures that Europe remains part of the technological leadership in hydrogen mobility. Critics often argue that hydrogen vehicles are less efficient than battery vehicles when viewed from a full energy pathway perspective. And while that is true in specific grid scenarios, efficiency is not the only metric that shapes market viability. What truly matters are cost, user convenience, market readiness, and infrastructure compatibility. Hydrogen is more efficient than batteries in several domains that matter significantly: refueling time, long-distance stability, load capacity, and use in markets with weak or unreliable grids. BMW's funding is an acknowledgement that technological ecosystems require diversity to address diverse needs. Just as diesel and gasoline engines coexisted for decades because they served different segments, hydrogen and battery vehicles will coexist because they solve different problems. From a clean energy investment standpoint, BMW's funding announcement is also strategic because it de-risks a portion of the hydrogen value chain. When a major OEM commits to hydrogen, financiers from banks to private equity to infrastructure funds view hydrogen mobility as less speculative and more investable. Project bankers typically look for credible off-takers, scalable demand, technology maturity, and long-term policy stability. BMW's $273 million funding builds confidence across all four metrics. It signals policy support from Germany, long-term commitment from BMW, and alignment with EU industrial strategy. That combination reduces perceived risk, which in turn lowers the cost of capital for hydrogen mobility projects. Lower cost of capital means more viable hydrogen refueling stations, cheaper financing for electrolyzer installations, and stronger investor appetite across the value chain. The public perception of hydrogen may also shift as BMW enters the market. When a brand with BMW's legacy, engineering credibility, and consumer trust commits to a technology, consumers pay attention. Public acceptance is one of the biggest barriers to hydrogen adoption. Many people still associate hydrogen with complexity, scarcity, or safety concerns, even though modern hydrogen systems are engineered with multiple safety layers, exceed global regulatory standards, and operate at extremely low risk levels. BMW's entry into the space educates consumers, normalizes hydrogen as a premium mobility option, and strengthens cross-industry collaboration. The commercial ecosystem around hydrogen mobility will expand in response. Hydrogen suppliers, pipeline operators, storage tank manufacturers, valve companies, composite material producers, and electrolyzer companies all stand to benefit. BMW's funding aligns with similar moves from companies like Daimler-Volvo, hydrogen trucks, Hyundai, hydrogen heavy-duty fleets, and Airbus, hydrogen aviation concepts. The convergence of multiple sectors around hydrogen amplifies investment momentum and creates a more robust ecosystem. BMW's contribution strengthens the passenger vehicle segment of that ecosystem, which has long struggled to scale. Ultimately, the future of hydrogen mobility hinges on cost reductions across the supply chain. BMW's funding helps on the demand side by preparing the market for mass-scale fuel cell vehicles. But on the supply side, hydrogen production costs, especially green hydrogen, must fall to hit widespread adoption. With electrolyzer costs declining, renewable electricity prices dropping, and policy incentives increasing, green hydrogen is becoming more competitive. BMW's move signals an expectation that green hydrogen costs will continue falling between now and 2030. The company is not making a bet on expensive hydrogen. It is positioning itself for a world where hydrogen becomes accessible, widespread, and cost competitive. With the iX5 hydrogen expected in 2028, the time to build hydrogen infrastructure is now. The funding BMW received is not just a company-level milestone, it is an industry-level acceleration event. Its effects will ripple across supply chains, project development, engineering capabilities, and hydrogen economics for years. For developers, investors, policymakers, and hydrogen professionals, this funding marks the beginning of a new phase in the hydrogen economy. One where fuel cells are not experimental but industrialized, where hydrogen mobility is not a niche but a growing reality, and where automotive companies like BMW help define the next chapter of zero-emission transportation.